Hi, I'm Maddie Scarried. I'm the director of the Poppy Jasper International Film Festival, and I'm here with two filmmakers from New York, Nick Ronan and Erica Camareno, and both of them have made this incredible film called Blue Fire. So we're here today to talk to them a little bit about the making of and how they met too. I think that's one of the most interesting parts of this story with you guys is that you've been doing this for a while now together. You've made this is your second film, the second
Our
film.
second film together,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, can you guys talk a little bit about how you started working together?
Definitely.
Sure. Well, we're both actors, and we met in the actor realm. We both studied with an amazing teacher named Bob Krakauer in his master class, and so from that spawned this practice group where we would just get together and work on scenes, and that's sort of the beginning of our, friendship and then our collaboration.
That was like 7 years ago, I think.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was all just practicing, and we did that. That group was together, I think, for like a couple years, like 3 or 4 years. It was a core group, and we would just coach each other and practice auditions as actors.
And then so Nick, how did you write in you're the writer director and then you both produce. How did you get started as a filmmaker?
Sure. Well, I've always been a writer, and acting came later for me. Um, but I always was in love with the movies ever since I was a little kid, and so I double majored in acting and filmmaking in college. And I always knew I would come back to the filmmaking, so I was more focused on my acting. But I'm really glad I did, because as an actor, making your own work puts a lot of power back into your hands as creators, and you're not waiting for someone else to give you permission to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And as a writer, it's very satisfying then to bring something from script to screen, and kind of see that manifest in that journey, and then you get to go through the entire process, but get to see what you envisioned
Mm-hmm.
on the page, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I describe myself, I think, as a writer and director, or a writer and an actor, but I love directing as well.
Well, yeah, you're very talented at directing. I mean, your films are so beautiful, and every frame is gorgeous. You really pay such a close attention to composition, and it's amazing. I love watching your films.
Thank you so much.
So
I think that's
Erica,
part of, I was going to just
no,
say,
go
I
ahead.
think that that's part of what I think why Nick and I work so well together is because we're both really detail oriented, like almost to like it might,
Yeah.
sometimes fault us that we're so like perfectionists and like it needs to be like this. And yeah, but it's great, that Nick writes. He came to me with this script. That was before The Secret Nobody Knows, actually. He said, I want to do this.
Oh.
But we just didn't have, it wasn't the time. It was a larger scale project. So I just thought that was an interesting thing for you to know, that this script actually came first and then Secret Nobody Knows. But
Yeah.
yeah.
No, and that was actually 5 years ago when we think back of it, because like I had known Erica, and we were working together in the practice group, and so I wrote Blue Fire for us, and for her playing the main character, McCoy. Um, and it was like Erica said, it was just too big of a project. So The Secret Nobody Knows was that happy stepping stone that actually enabled us to make Blue Fire.
Right. So Erica, for you, what is the importance of a short film, making short films? Why do you think it's important for actors and filmmakers to do that?
Yeah, well, there's so much, well, sort of what Nick was saying before about being in control of, what it is you're putting out there. And as an actor, I'm often waiting for someone else to give me a job, right? Like I'm auditioning like crazy, and there's some really great things that I get opportunities for, but this is so much like you have so much say in the process, right? From start to finish. And then Nick taking me on and trusting me as a co-producer to sort of like collaborate creatively with him. It's so exciting for me just to get to be like, I get to dig into a character that maybe, you know, maybe it could happen, but it's harder, you know, in the commercialized world to sort of just get to this kind of meaty roles you really want to play. So it's so great to be in the short film world, just where you get to, you know, have some more creative control.
Yeah, yeah.
And Erica too, like when I was doing rewrites on Blue Fire, because it became very much of a collaboration, because she did have very much of a hand in kind of shaping the character that that we actually ended up shooting as McCoy. Like we had a lot of discussions, we had a lot of brainstorming of who this person was.
Yeah, and I love that Nick let me in that way, to just get to have that much of a say in like shaping the story that we're telling, and us really like listening and trusting each other to be like, okay, like I see this and I hear that, and you know, so it was really cool as a writer for Nick to let me just tell him, do this.
That's great.
He's always doing that.
I'm never afraid to tell Nick.
You're also never afraid to tell me when something's not working. That's not good, Nick.
No.
Yeah, don't do
Change
that.
it.
Don't do that.
If it gets past Erica, I'm pretty.
Well, you guys are very lucky to have such a great working relationship, because, you know, chemistry is everything. It's stressful making a film, and that's great that you have that chemistry with each other. What was the inspiration for Blue Fire?
Yeah, really so many things. I was very interested in the time when I wrote this, and I still am, but how we as human beings are constantly in a state of change, and we're evolving into the next version of ourselves. And I mean, every 7 years, biologically, our cells regenerate. So that was kind of a first idea. But there's a lot of, you know, I take from a lot of different things. This is really a modern fable about rebirth, I would say. I grew up with fairy tales and the sci-fi films of the 80s and 90s. And so there's some fire in the sky here. That's the Travis Walton alien abduction story. There's some Ridley Scott's Aliens, which terrified me for years of my childhood. And there's a little Annihilation, Alex Garland's film in here as well. And so, yeah, it's just like all these little pockets kind of culminated into this film, and then asking this question, which I think is one of the things the film poses too, is if somebody you loved came back into your life from your past, and they had hurt you deeply, but they needed your help, what would you do? Would you help them?
Yeah. What is your favorite part about this film, of this story, Erica?
Oh my gosh, so many things. What really struck me when I first read the script was these two people and their relationship together. And it was an exciting prospect as an actor to take on someone who I feel is very different from me. And these characters were a bit more edgy, a little more rugged, a little, you know, harsher, you know, have had maybe harder things happen in their life. And then therefore their relationship to each other was strained as well. So I just love the evolution these two people go through, and then where we end up is sort of like, you know, questioning what's next. And it just was very touching in you know, in a deep way. So I love stories that take you on a journey with a character.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the visual effects, Nick, and what that process was like?
Very long process. I got long
from him. Do you know anyone?
You know, this was the first sci-fi film that I've made. And
Mhm.
so going into it, we did some in-camera effects, and some of them worked and some of them didn't quite work. And so we knew we have a butterfly that's thematic throughout the film, and we knew that was going to be a visual effect. But then there were a few other things we had to come in and enhance or tweak. And as we got more into it, it really became evident that's kind of where the magic also lay in this film.
Mhm.
So it's very difficult to do a short film with really believable special effects, and we were lucky that we worked with some great artists in post. I think there was three different artists. The original designer did the butterfly, and that design was fantastic. And then animating that throughout the film, actually, he did some of it, but there was a final designer who came in and finished that in the last part of the film. We have I don't know if I should give this away, but there's an alien cocoon in the film, and we did an in-camera effect that didn't read right. And so getting that, it's kind of our hero shot in the film. Getting that right took a lot of work and a lot of different trial and error. And Adam Lima, the designer who ended up doing the cocoon for us, he actually built it. He built a model.
Oh, wow.
And shot it on a green screen, and then animated it into the image.
Wow.
But the trick too with what we were trying to do with the special effects is, what's fantastic is organic to this world. So we really wanted it to look like it belonged in the natural world that we were living in this gritty winter in southern Vermont. So those effects, there was a lot of time and effort put into making them as realistic as possible. And that's very, very challenging.
Well, they were like characters in the film,
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, that's that butterfly and the cocoon, that they were characters, and it had to be real, had to look real, had to feel real. And
or then immediately you're out.
Yeah, it takes you out of the story if you are looking at these visual effects and either don't believe them or you're questioning them. So it was quite a long process. We went through many versions of all these things, from the butterfly to the cocoon to even the specks that are flying in the air.
Yes.
In one of those final scenes. Like this, we had whole conversations about the specks and the pattern of the specks, and these details that you really start to look at when you're on the filmmaking side of things. And this film was not, well, we'll just say, it was a long process. We ended up having to go into reshoots, which was also like a scary decision, because you've put so much time and energy and money into making a film, and then you're like, we got through the end of our first cut after we had shot, and we were like, it's just not there. It's not what we wanted to be.
The ending it wasn't quite working.
Yeah.
And then so we actually, a year later, we went back, or it was a year from when we had shot. We went back and we reshot the end of the film, and it also gave us kind of the rare opportunity to then, I got to go in and fix little things throughout the film and add a couple scenes here and there. There's a whole memory sequence, short circuit flashes, and that wasn't in the original.
That wasn't in the original, yeah.
That's something that we added, and I love that part. It just kind of enhances their relationship and story very, very quickly and in a completely visual way. So you don't have to spend time wasted on scenes that don't need to be there.
Well, these short films, they have a long life, so when you're doing them, it's nice that you step back and said, you know what, we need to make this right, because it does have a long life. Like I know The Secret Nobody Knows had a long life through the festival run, and a great festival run. And so I'm really, you know, I also am really excited that we get to show it first.
I know you
at
have a
Poppy
world
Jasper. So yeah,
this 2 years in the making.
Yeah.
It's so wonderful to premiere at Poppy Jasper.
well, you know, it was my first year when you guys came. That you were my first filmmakers from New York, and I was just like, you hold a very special place in my heart.
Oh, and you and ours, Maddie.
Likewise.
Yeah.
That was such a wonderful weekend.
Yeah.
And then I remember our winery tour. That was.
Oh, we have to come back and we will again. We shall. It'll happen. I know it.
You became the coolest festival director ever very quickly.
Okay, so what about camera? What camera did you use? What lenses camera?
So we used, we shot on a red helium, which is a camera I love. We shot The Secret Nobody Knows on that same camera as well. The lenses, you would need to talk to my cinematographer, but we used an older lens, so it has kind of like a, kind of like a grittier feel to it. And it really does help with the aesthetic of the film.
Yeah, and we also used a drone for a couple of shots, which was an adventure in and of itself too, because the programming needs to be like, it was a production to use the drone, but it was so exciting once we got it up and going.
And you guys were really in snow, right?
Oh yeah. We were in like knee-deep snow at certain points, and I was not wearing the proper shoes. My boots were like, we had like 3 layers of socks and like those, you know, the hand warmers that you stick in there. We were like in the elements, but we were with a lot of our crew was from Vermont, and so like they knew the terrain, they knew the landscape, and we really relied on them big time to be our guides in that way, which was I was so grateful for all of them.
And we really were. We were in a 200-year-old hunting cabin off grid in southern Vermont in the Green Mountains, and so that right there posed a ton of challenges. It was a hike to get in and out of. We had a bunch of different locations, and literally everything that possibly could have gone wrong.
Yes.
4.5 days was our original shoot. They were really long. It was like 10 degrees. Just literally we were fighting the elements. And I've talked about this to Erica, but it felt like being in like filmmaking trenches, and like bombs are like exploding and flying over, and you're just like, but we had a great team and they stuck with it. And, you know, it's so satisfying to survive that and come out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh my goodness, I can't imagine. And you know, there's one shot and you're in the snow and you don't have a lot on.
I have nothing on.
Yeah, nothing.
I was about to say, I'm like Maddie. He's like,
you know, nothing in the snow. Oh my God. How did you do that? How did you do that? Because
there was a lot of preparation for that shot, just in terms of like making sure once the shot was done that like Nick would be warm. But honestly, I think adrenaline gets you through those moments. I mean, you know, like the people do this stuff for like, you know, resistance building in life. So it's like, I think, you know, I think Nick was testing his.
It's funny because Erica's the one person who was on my side to do this, okay? Because the other producers were worried about hypothermia. It was 10 degrees, and you know, there was snow everywhere, and so it's this weird thing where I did have to fight to do that. It was very uncomfortable. Erica was the one person who's like, no, he'll be fine.
Yeah, I was like, it'll be fine. It was because it was such a fleeting moment, and it was also just like, prepare for something like that. And also like I was at a point where like my husband was doing these ice baths, and he was like built like, you know, like people do this stuff, and I was like, this is nothing. They can do that. Like we're gonna get through this, you know. And everyone was so worried and like Nick's gonna die. And I'm like, no, like he's not. Like he's gonna be. This is good. This is gonna be good for the film.
And it's a pivotal scene. It's really important. So that's good for you.
Yeah.
And you know what? And I got the shot that I wanted. That's
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite shots. That drone shot coming up is one of my favorite shots.
Well, especially when you see something in your head, you have to have it, right? And
Yeah.
Yeah, it's then a weird thing to do that. I was a combination of terrified and then I had to do it in front of my crew too. Like, you know.
They got to know you in another way.
Yeah. Everybody just it was confirmed that I was crazy, and then we did it.
Can you guys talk a little bit about what you're working on now?
Surviving.
You went first?
But actually the scene in New York right now, I think an interesting side effect of this pandemic has been that New York shows are really casting New York actors. So I think it's really opened up a lot of opportunity, and both Nick and I are getting to audition a ton, which is great. I have a recurring role on The Equalizer, which is Queen Latifah's new show. And so it's great to be a part of that. And, you know, I'm just, you know, we're getting into it with Blue Fire, which is like what's on my mind actually, because we're pushing this film out. We're premiering at Poppy Jasper, and then we're just, you know, going to take the festival run, you know, virtually. But it's just so exciting to have another film that's going to be out there. So
That's great.
Yeah, no, I used this last year to do a lot of writing, and I have a new feature film that I'm just about to jump into rewrites for, and it's completely different genre, set in New York, and about 6 lives that intersect 72 hours before this event kind of changes the fabric of all of their lives. So that's my next writing project, and
Good.
yeah, just staying busy with auditioning and you know, hopefully Blue Fire will
Oh, it's going to do great.
be the you know, going on for the next 2.5 years.
Yes. Well, do you guys, each of you, have any advice for young filmmakers, you know, coming up?
Take risks. Don't be afraid to fail, because if you don't take the risk, then you may never succeed. And for myself, speaking from experience, I've failed so many times. It's you learn, and you pick yourself, and you go on, and that's how you also get better. And that's also, I mean, with Blue Fire, you know, we set out, we wanted to do a very challenging film, and it was that, and it was a very risky film to do. But I'm so happy that I took that risk, and you know, here we are today. So I would just say, like, you know, people will always tell you that you can't do it. You have to follow your gut and your heart, and take the calculated risks that will empower you to do the next thing.
That's wonderful. Very well said. What about you, Erica?
Yeah. Well, failing forward for sure, as Nick mentioned. But I would add on to, like, find your people. You know, I think part of why this works is, like, you know, that we found our people, and we trust each other, you know, just inherently. And you want to bring in those people who are like as crazy as you, right? Like Nick's like, this is gonna be crazy. I don't know what it's gonna be. And I'm just like, yeah, let's do it. You know, like you want to find the people who are just gonna have your back, and who, you know, you can send anything to. And, like, you know, and you know, you bring those people in, and there's, you know, that network you start to build. And it really is that, because this is a collaborative process, and it takes so many people. And so it's, you know, really bringing those people in, and keeping them close, you know, the people that you know, our team, just, you know, and the people you continue to work with moving forward, and building that network of support around you, because that's how you'll be able to have the encouragement to keep creating, to keep going, to keep doing.
That's great advice. Very great advice.
Absolutely. And I just, on that note, I would love to shout out to our team, who
Oh, yes.
was absolutely brilliant. We worked with some incredible artists, and we couldn't have made this film without them. I think our crew when we shot was we had like 14 people. Half was from Vermont, half was from New York. Our cinematographer, he flew in from Germany, and yeah, it's just like that collaboration made it possible, and from you know, production to post production, the entire process, we were surrounded by very good and talented people.
One thing I just realized we didn't talk about is the music, because the music is so beautiful. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I would love to. So Jesse Weiner has scored my last two films. So this is my third with him. He scored my first Vinyl Underground, and then The Secret Nobody Knows, and now Blue Fire. And you know, it was a wonderfully collaborative process of me torturing him because like we really we searched so long and hard. Like I had some ideas coming in. The soundtrack of The Witch, that kind of haunting violin and cello was something I wanted to bring into Blue Fire. And so like we played with that, and another film, Arrival, kind of like what they do in that soundtrack. And so we tried to marry those, and yeah, he just was absolutely amazing. He's a brilliant composer, and he just worked and worked and worked with me really until we found that sweet spot. And there were a couple. There was a cello piece, and then there was also kind of this alien sound that we were looking for. It's kind of like a haunting whale sound, but you don't know really. And once we found those, it kind of opened the door to the rest of the film.
Well, thank you so much, both of you. And you know, we'll definitely have to have you come back in 22 when, knock on wood, we're in person.
Yeah.
So thank you so
Maddie.
much.
Thank you so much, Maddie. Thanks for having us.